Hey guys, it's my last day here. It's Saturday, November 8th, and it's my last day here in the Chicago area before I head home or back to Kentucky tomorrow. And I wanted to see one last person before I left the area, and this lady is so special to me. And I was shocked that she didn't pass away until 2020, and I didn't know her. I would have sought her out. But I have to tell you about Jeanette Becker, beloved wife and mother, grandmother and great-grandmother. Jeanette E., which is Esther. Last name is Becker. And her husband is Milton. And he passed in 2022. She was 90 years old. I think he was 93. February 17th, 1925 to August 17th, 2022. That's Milton. And then Mrs. Becker here, I'll tell you why I'm saying Mrs. Becker. March 5th, 1930 to July 22nd, 2020. God bless this lady, you guys. So, by the way, I thought this cemetery was going to be closed because when I looked it up, it said it was closed today. It's Shalom Memorial Park Cemetery in Arlington Heights, Illinois. It's a Jewish cemetery. And when I looked it up, it said that it was closed. And I researched why, and it says that on Saturdays, most Jewish cemeteries are closed because it's a Sabbath day and they reopen again on Sunday. But when I got here, the gates were unlocked. I decided to take a chance because otherwise I'd have to come really early tomorrow morning, and I'm leaving tomorrow and I didn't want to have to stop here. So I'm so glad I did. And then this place is pretty empty. I'm parked right there. And it's so funny because as soon as I got him out of my car, a little tractor comes along with two guys in it. And I said, "Are you cemetery workers? Would you be able to help me find a grave?" And he said, "Sure." So I showed him the find a grave, and he walked right over and led me here. But let me tell you about Mrs. Becker. So how I call her Mrs. Becker because that's what I used to call her. So this lady is a wonderful, wonderful person. So when I was 17 years old, I was not living at home any longer. I was living on my own. Jeanette and myself worked at a place. I got a job through a friend named Doris Toombs. And Doris was the administrative assistant at the Bohemian Home for the Aged in Chicago. Now, I had volunteered at the Bohemian Home since 8th grade, and I was 17, so about 5 years. And I needed a job and a place to live. So Doris said, "Come and see me. I got a job for you." And she hired me on the spot, because she knew me. I used to volunteer there doing bingo nights at the home for the seniors. So she knew me well. And so I started working at the Bohemian Home. And Mrs. Becker was the head nurse, and she was my direct boss. She was the person in charge. I worked under the nursing program. Not as a nurse, I was a ward clerk. I did all kinds of stuff there. I loved my job, absolutely loved my job. I'll tell you about it a little bit later. But anyway, I was 17 years old, and Mrs. Becker was my boss. And I worked directly with her on a lot of things. I used to transcribe doctor's orders. I used to bring patients up to see the doctor that would come to the home to see the patients. I used to do a lot of stuff. I used to bring like blood samples across the street to the Salvation Army home where they had a lab that did our lab work. I took patients back and forth to the hospital with a driver. I did all kinds of things. I absolutely loved the job. But Mrs. Becker, she looked at me one day, and I was squinting. And she said, "Flo, I'm thinking you might need some glasses or something because you're squinting a lot." And I said, "No, I'm okay. I can see." She goes, "Well, I want you to have an eye exam." So I forgot about what she said. And a few days later, she comes up to me and she says, "Flo, I made an appointment for you at this, not optometrist, an ophthalmologist, a specialist. And it was in Skokie." She said, "If you need a ride there, I can do it. Otherwise, I want you to be at this appointment on such and such a time and such a day." And I'm like, okay. So a few days went by and my appointment came up, and I went down there, and I had my exam. And then when I went to pay for it, and I'm thinking, how am I going to afford this? Because I wasn't making much money. I was just 17 years old. And I had not a minimum, it was a little more than minimum wage. I was renting a room from them. I didn't have like an apartment. I had a room that they rented out to employees. They had different rooms they rented out to employees in the old school building there. So I'm like, how am I going to afford this bill? Because it's got to be a lot being a specialist. Well, I went to pay for it, and they said, nope, it's all taken care of. So it turns out Mrs. Becker not only set up my appointment. I used to call her Mrs. Becker at the nursing home. That's why I'm doing it now. Mrs. Becker used to set up my appointment and paid for it. So God bless her, man. And when I went to work, I said, why did you do that? I feel kind of funny because I don't like to take things from people. Even as a kid, I was always that way. And she said, you remind me of my kids. She had 3 kids. She used to talk about her husband, Milton, a lot. And she said, you're like my kids. She goes, you're so young. I just wanted to take care of you, that's all. And she, continued to do things throughout my career there, which I don't know if you call it a career. I worked there for about 4 years, and I had volunteered about 5 years before that. So I was around the nursing home for about 9 years. But this lady, I never forgot what she did for me. And then, I mentioned Doris Toombs, the administrative assistant who I used to volunteer with for bingo. And she's the one who actually got me the job. God bless Doris, too, because I didn't have a dime. This was like one of my first jobs. And, being on a nursing staff, you need a uniform. And I didn't have any money. So one day she comes over right before I started work, and she says, come on, we're going to the store. So she took me to this beautiful little store and bought me like 5 sets of uniforms to wear for work. That was Doris. And God, I wish I could find out where she's buried, because I know she's got to be long gone by now. But I found out that Jeanette was here with her husband, and I had to come and see her because she blessed me. God bless this lady. I mean, she had a heart of gold. She used to ask me to come over on the holidays if I wanted to, but I never did. I felt funny interfering with her family. But I just had to come and see her before I head home. And I'm so glad I did. God bless you, Mrs. Becker. I love you, man. I never forgot what you did for me. Just the little things like that. You were just very special. And by the way, that was one of my favorite jobs at the nursing home. I absolutely loved that job. I was all over the place. I had a lot of different things to do. I got to interact with all the residents there, and it was just wonderful. I loved the job. And I love my boss, Jeanette Becker. God bless you, Mrs. Becker. Rest in peace to you and your husband, Milton. And I did bring a couple of rocks because this is a Jewish cemetery, and I forgot to get them out of the car when the cemetery worker walked me over here. So I'll be right back. I made a trip to my car, guys, to leave a rock for Mrs. Becker and her husband, Milton. So there you guys go. Rest in peace. I'll never forget what you did for me, Mrs. Becker. I'll never forget. It says beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. They should have put beloved boss on here, too. She was the head nurse at the nursing home I worked at in Chicago. So rest in peace. And thank you for everything.